I did, when we had our agenda review, I did try to, since we are voting on these things tonight, and some of them are new, I did try to break out some of the ones that I thought some board members might have questions on and might not want to vote as a package. Otherwise, you'll see 7A through L, we can take as one motion unless anybody has a problem with any of these items. So is there a...
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion for 7A through L by Mr. Durso. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Olson. Any questions on any of the items? I did have... I actually have two questions. Under the athletic bid, I did see we're going out to purchase two AEDs in there, and I also saw we're going out to bid on AEDs. So did we want to put those as part of the bid package, or we actually did want to go out and buy those separately? Are they different types of different models?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that information right now, but I'll definitely find out.
And I guess all the other ones in the schools are past their, we have to get an expiration.
Yes.
Yeah, so if we could find out if we want to add those to the bid package or not. And then my other question was for item L with the concrete and handrail work. If you look at the bid, it's just for concrete. I see no mention at all about the handrails on there. So is it just the concrete, or are we actually?
It should say on there handrails included. It's on the quote somewhere.
There's 106 pages, so I might have skimmed through it too quickly.
Yes, the handrails are included with the cost of the concrete. KPN does not give a line item for the handrails.
Okay.
So the line items for the concrete cover the cost of the concrete and the handrail costs.
All right. Can you just do me a favor and double check that
Yeah,
because I did not. It did break out. It did break out like the removal and the running of this piece of machinery and that piece of machinery. But like I said, I just read it quickly. But and when I read, I did not see any mention at all about handrails. So if we could just make sure that we are indeed getting those for our price of $17,000, that'd be great. Any other board questions? No? Okay. Roll call vote, I guess. Yeah.
Ms. Albright?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Durso?
Yes.
Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott?
Which one did you say?
You.
Me, yes. Sorry.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Alrighty, if we move on to item 8, we're renewing our contract with the BCIU to utilize 2 classrooms for Kinder Plus and 1 classroom for pre-K counts over in the APC. The only reason I broke this out is I know there's been some concerns by board members about space over there, and I just wanted to make sure you folks were comfortable with us. Everyone's comfortable with us leasing out or not, 3 classrooms to them. So, do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wolf. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. J. Scott. Any board conversation? Okay, all good?
Hello?
Yep, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Durso?
Yes.
Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Ms. Albright?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay. Item 9. is a motion to approve our settlement, long coming, with Sodexo for some contractual disputes we had with them for the sum of $124,140.02. I have a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Durso. Second, please.
Second.
Second, I'll give it to Mrs. Albrecht. Any board comments or questions?
Would you give the second to?
I give it to Mrs. Albrecht. Any board comments or questions?
Mr. Templin isn't here to weigh in on
Yeah, could someone pass along that to Mr. Templin, please, that we received a settlement from Sodexo, and we will be happy about that.
Perhaps an email?
Something in there? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
that? Yes. Mr. Durso.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Olson.
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Item 10, as recommended by the Technology Committee, supported by Mr. Matz, an agreement with Heartland Services for the My School Bucks program, which I believe they handle all kinds of payments. Is that the?
They do. We want to use them for electronic payments, starting with the iPad.
I got that.
There's some language that we need to sign and move forward. It's been reviewed. We have an amendment for them to agree to before we can sign off. So I guess we're going to vote to sign off if they agree to it.
Okay. Yeah, there was a section 1 that was added on there or something?
There was a last page that's an amendment that's provided to them.
Okay. Do I have a motion for school bucks?
So moved.
Mr. Strobel, second please.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Olson. Any board comments or questions? My concern was the data. It looked like they were pretty locked down what they can or can't do with the data that they mine. That's what a section 1 said something about like school lunches or something. I wasn't quite sure what that was.
Yeah,
I mean, are we using it for school lunch programs to buy?
no, we could in the future, but no, the first use is going to be for the iPad process.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call vote, Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Rathgeb. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Olson.
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Durso.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
The records show that Mr. Bucky Scott has joined us in person at 7:47. Item 11, A through C. I believe we're still pending AEC, or no, sorry, getting my schools mixed up these days. AIC, although I'm sure it can't be much different than what's the primary, but a little bit. I know that Mrs. Weber is working on that, so should get that shortly.
Yeah, my understanding is that AIC will be ready for the meeting on 27th.
Okay. Do I have a motion for items 11A through C?
So moved.
Mr. Durso moves. Second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Miller. I don't think we need a roll call for this one. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Personnel, we have a whole slew here. A through J. Is it? M? M as amended. So I have a motion for items 12A through M as amended. Or is it L? Where am I at here? Losing track.
I have it in mind.
You can have one of yours?
Can we,
No, actually it's through 12, 3F. There we go. So,
Well,
1,
F was
2,
taken off.
3.
It's really through 12 2E, because F was an agenda in the parish works, it's not on the agenda.
12C.
I think when we, Mr. Hurley, when you were in the meeting, agenda meeting on Thursday?
I was not on
You were
Thursday.
not? Okay, do we have people in the wings to fill in these to be determined names for these positions, K, L, and M?
Yeah, we'll put them on there for you for the next one.
All right, so you do have
Yeah,
viable
yeah, we
candidates?
have them. It was just timing of getting between these things. We'll have them for the next meeting.
So we're approving with no name?
You're approving the position.
Okay, perfect.
The names.
Well, actually, what's confusing me is it starts off with 12A, and then it runs through C, and then also we get to 2 is classifieds, and then 3 is extracurricular. So shouldn't there be an A, 12A, oh, there it is, 12A1. 12A1. 12A1 through F, right? And that pretty much takes us to the end of the agenda, right?
So moved.
And just
Wait a
interrupt
minute.
him, sorry to jump in, the positions for the K, L, and M on the regular agenda are listed. All of them are filled, we have offers, they will be ready to start tomorrow for the agenda edits page. So all the teaching positions are filled.
So, I mean, I think item 12 takes us through the end of the unedited agenda.
So that takes us to what, F, like the last one before 13 is.
I believe that's where it takes us.
And then our edited one goes to J, so we're not going to deal with that yet?
It's all part of 12.
I think I need a teacher who teaches English and.
Do you want to deal, I can make a motion for 12A through F, and then we can deal with G, H, I, and J separately, that's on the edited version.
I like that.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All right, so what's the motion for?
Catch me.
For 12A, starting at the bottom of page 2.
So 12-1A,
12A
12A. All right, 12A.
to 12F, which is
B,
in
C.
the middle of page 5.
B, C, D, E, F. Yes, correct. So that takes us through the end of this, our regular agenda,
Including
and
all
including the edit
edits
for
letter
12C 1 and 2.
Except for
And so we'll deal with
Yes,
this separately.
yes.
So we're just going up to F.
Yes.
excluding
We'll take those
2,
separately.
or 12C to
Excuse me, sir, whose motion is this?
GHIJ. I'm just clarifying. Just make sure I understand before I agree.
All right.
Okay.
Right, where it's
Who seconded?
everything in 12 except for
Yeah, he did.
12C to G through J.
And not including 12G, H, I, or J.
Yeah, G through J. Yeah,
Right.
I said 12C
G,
to
H, I, and J will
G,
be
H, I,
separate.
J are excluded from the motion. They'll be handled separately. So we're
Okay.
voting on everything in 12 except for those,
Except for G, H, I, and J
except for these.
on the back.
Correct.
On the back.
Just except for
Well,
these.
to make this cleaner, the K, L, and M. Maggie, do we have the names that we could put on the
This
agenda?
is where being live audiences is good.
They're on the agenda edit, so they're just numbered incorrectly. So on C, on the edited agenda,
Oh, okay.
C1L actually goes with J, or I'm sorry, K, L, M. So.
See, here's
the
where
new
the
label
number
is the LCS map.
So these fill into here.
No, actually, K is, it's not there. Oh, yeah, so, yeah.
That's Angela.
K is the So that is, that's Angela Owens. So her name is not on here. Angela Owens has a math intervention, which is K. Or I'm sorry, that's a transfer for K. Then the
Okay, we know she's Friday.
math intervention LTS until October.
Did we start your
September,
recording?
would be Lindsay Schlegel. The LTS third grade teacher is Bridget Tokash. And then my contracts are the N and the O, Christine Kocher in fifth grade and Maureen Wildman, who takes the place of Angela Owens for the fourth grade teacher.
That's correct. What she said.
I was busy last week.
As they say at the baseball stadium, you need the program. Although we have the program, we still can't follow it, so I'm not quite sure.
They're all filled.
Okay, so we're doing a motion for personnel, item 12, everything, including amendments, except for G, H, I, and J. I believe Mrs. Olson made the motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jeff Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty. We'll have to work on our agenda edit processes. Okay. So we,
Now we need to deal with each.
yeah,
Do with GHI.
yeah. And did we, when we made the, I assume we added, although I don't know if the motion was made, did we add items 8, G, and H with the MOU with United Way? Was that part of the original motion? Mr. Wolf, do you recall?
Sorry?
Do you recall if, when we made the motion to approve programs under 8, was G and H included in that?
It was 12A through F, except G, H, I, J.
No, item
Number 8.
item 8. Programs?
We going backwards now?
Yeah, we're going back, yes. We're regressing. That was actually, for some unknown reason, that was, well, actually, programs only, item 8 did not have any, it was just by itself.
It should be a.
I guess that was item 7, is that, no?
H should be, that H should be an 11. and
That
it
H
looks
should
like
be an
it
11.
should be a D and
Yes, it should be an 11.
It should be a D and an E instead of a G and an H.
That looks correct, Mrs. Olson. Can I get a motion to amend our approval of item 11 to include G and H, please?
Make a motion.
Mrs. Olson, have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jeff Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, very good.
Who seconded that?
Jeff Scott. Alrighty, that takes us to hopefully the end of the show here. Item G, we have a motion to accept the resignation of James Harris
I'd
as
like to make a
district
motion.
superintendent.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Olson, second by Mr.
You
Durso.
can have it.
No, you got it.
Fight over this one?
I'll fight over it.
We had a third as well, Mr.
Yes,
Wolf.
there was.
It's all right now.
Any discussion? The effective August 17th. Roll call vote, Mr. Wolf?
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Durso,
Yes.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Rathfield.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
All right. Item H, we will be approving as acting superintendent Rob Hurley, who is no stranger to the role. And also, you'll see on your attachment, there was part of that was an increase to Rob's pay while he's in that role. Have a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Who is that?
Me.
Oh, Mr. Wolf, second. By Mr. Strobel. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Durso,
Yes.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Item I is a motion to approve a salary adjustment and an equity raise for Mr. Matz for this coming year. Do I have a motion for that, please?
Unless you have an objection, could we do a motion for I and J together?
Actually, that's why they're separate.
Oh, you would like to?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would too.
make a motion for I.
Mrs. Olson, second, please.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Roll call vote, please. I'm sorry, is there any discussion? Did you want to have a discussion, Mr. Scott?
I want to talk about Jay.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, as I said, I wanted it separate as I am actually voting no on I. And that's not any reflection on Mr. Matz. It's a reflection on the fact that the board should not have been put in that position. I think administration, if they felt Mr. Matz should have an adjustment, they should have come to us before we were placed in that position to do so. So I think that was a failing on administration's part for getting that done and putting us in that spot. So anyway, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Durso,
Yes.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
No.
Motion passes 8-1.
And finally, item J is salary adjustments for our Act 93 group, less the principals. We're still waiting for some data on the school performance, I believe, right, Rob?
Yes, that's correct.
So once we get that data, then we will also add them to the list to be retroactive. So, do I have a motion for J, please?
I just have a question.
You can make a motion first.
Do we have to motion first? I'll make a motion for Jay.
I'll second.
Mr. Jeff Scott and Mrs. Olson seconds. Questions?
So can we assume then that these salaries, along with whatever the adjustments are going to be for the principals, fall within the guidelines that we set forth? Meaning the board approves a determined percentage increase average rate, which then...
Well, I guess we can assume so, but this is coming from Mr. Harris. So my assumption was that the business office made sure that was within the parameters of what the board approved.
I just feel like it's a little cart before the horse on this. Not it has no reflection on the people. It's more or less about how we're approving one set of...
We can approve it pending confirmation that it was within the board set parameters for increase, right?
Yeah, I mean, just because I feel like you have to know everybody's increase before you can prove anyone's, because it's a finite set of dollars that we're approving, not individual salaries.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think probably the principals are all but done. They're just, I think there's about a set dollar amount that's still potentially awarded to them, which we probably already know, right?
Yeah, the principal's evaluation is done except for a few metrics the state has to give us in regards to the testing results. So we have an idea of the parameters itself. In terms of those calculations, Mr. Harris did those, so I can't speak to them, but I can speak to the principal's evaluation. As soon as we get those metrics, we'll incorporate them.
I guess what I'm saying is there any harm in approving them all at once as opposed to, like, what's the impact of not approving these now and then approving the administrators later?
The only impact is that these folks have to wait.
Right.
which I don't like. I mean, it's already making them wait as it is. So.
Does this include the discretionary funds that we talked about, or the superintendent have the ability to disperse?
Yeah, so the board did approve the amount of money that was available across the board,
Right.
and it was up to the superintendent to decide how that money was allocated.
Is that in here, though? Has that already been allocated? Do we know?
In the that spreadsheet that was sent out to us today was just the final number, right? That's all right. Anybody? Yeah, I believe it was just the final number, right? It didn't say what the increase was, right? I'm sorry. The spreadsheet that went out with the attachment was just the actual number of, you mean, in the past, we got
We've got-
spreadsheets that
Show
would
what-
tell us what the increase was, but we did not this time. So if we want to, I mean, we can approve it pending getting that spreadsheet.
I guess what I'm getting at is, we approve these, then the principal,
Mr. Strobel, what's your number?
13. Lucky 13.
then the principal's data comes in, we determine what their salaries are, and then all those combined
That's fine.
exceeds the amount that we've already approved.
Yeah,
Or is far below what we approved. I'm asking, do we know that's not a potential scenario?
As I said, I believe that last potential bonus for the superintendents is a pretty narrow number.
Principal?
Oh, sorry, principal, sorry.
I would think, I don't know.
But I mean,
Put it on
the-
the spot, I think Ms. Haynes would know if these are.
All I'm getting at is I don't want to end up with we go through these salary changes, and let's say there's $5,000, $10,000 left, and then when you do the assessments for the principals, there's not enough to really give them an adequate raise because there's only $10,000 left or $5,000, whatever it is, and then they get shorted, and all because we had to get some approved before we did the whole, and I'm just saying,
We
are
can-
we as a group willing to
We can certainly postpone this. This was added, I think, as one of Mr. Harris's last things he did. So
I just look at it like, are we willing to go over if we have to be fair to the folks who haven't gotten
Does
their
it
raises?
I
negatively
would
impact
actually be-
anybody by waiting? Does it negatively impact anybody by waiting?
Financially.
Well, but, I mean, I would assume that if we didn't approve it until the first day of school, these folks would get their increase retroactive.
It's retroactive now as it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm
We're
saying.
already
So-
past the yeah.
So I would not be averse to tabling it until we had numbers for everybody, and we were certain that.
And I'm, just to be clear, I'm not asking you to table, I'm just saying that
No,
the scenario exists where we could be short and have to either one, shortchange the administrators who are at the end of the line, or we're willing to go over our budget because there was a
Because,
decision made that, wasn't as part of the whole.
yeah,
made
because
separate.
we haven't seen the receipts on it.
Correct,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Would you care to instead table? Is that you make a motion to?
I guess my question would be for Mrs. Haynes, do we know if that's going to be the case?
I received these for the first time on Sunday. I did not have time. He worked with Mr. Small on most of these scenarios when it came to this. It was him and Mr. Small and Mr. Harris that worked together.
Okay.
At this point, I cannot give you an opinion on this until I actually have time to work the numbers.
Mr. Small, do you remember if it all is going to fall within the parameters?
I didn't see these numbers, Bill, tonight. Can you?
Yeah, this was like like I said, I think probably the very last thing Mr. Harris did before he.
I requested
I make
the
a
numbers
motion to
last
table.
meeting, and then this is what he sent to
Can
us.
we do that if there's already a motion to vote on it?
We've had to rescind,
Yep.
but I feel bad. I mean,
I
get
We
you.
can
I
skip
know,
the
I
tabling
know.
if we're
No,
comfortable with
I know
making
we're
any
comfortable.
adjustments to the total if we need to.
No, I get
Because the
it.
administrators are getting the short end of a bad decision made by our former superintendent.
well, he's still our superintendent for a few more days.
And no reflection on any of this that's already been worked out. I would feel more comfortable voting on it once we have the numbers for all the administrators, to stay within those guidelines that we discussed.
Mr. Hurley, when do you expect to get the other?
Historically, in April, the state is, or not April, October, historically, that's when the data came in. The state is promising it a little bit earlier this year, but I
Do
doubt
we?
it.
I believe what we did in the past. Do we have the base increase for our principals, and then we can certainly add that bonus in later?
I'd have to sit down with Kathleen to determine what the base is based on the percentages, and then go from there. So we can come back and
Perhaps
sit
we
down and
could
collaborate.
do that if we can get everybody for the next voting meeting, and then as that data comes in with the principals, we can get that. Then
Me and Kathleen will sit down and collaborate on that and come back to you.
Still be voting on this at the end of the month.
next voting meeting. 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. End of
So we need a
yes.
motion to
I
table.
did motion to table.
And a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Olson. Roll call vote. Mr. Wolf?
You don't need, you only need a motion and a second for the table.
Yeah.
You got
No
it?
vote.
Cool.
Mr. Scott, J. Scott, motion. Mrs. Olson, second the table.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry. All right, we'll start off. This is the new, Mr. Durso,
No.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, no. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Radke.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-2.
Presentation by public on any items at all? Okay. Oh, wait. You were hiding back there.
Just a question, do we have any indication why Mr. Harris left the district? Did he leave any reason? Cindy McGee, 101
Are you on there? Yeah.
I don't think so.
She doesn't have a
Oh, well, microphone's all the way over there. That's why. Yeah.
My fault.
Hey, I've known her for a while. She can,
Mrs. McGee, Mr. Harris is, we believe, has taken employment elsewhere. He just submitted his resignation. He didn't give any specifics.
That's all.
That's all. I have the on-off switch here.
Oh, you
I have
Like, turn one
I'm the board
on.
president. Any other public comment? So we're going to go to that
Keep going.
next. Oh, yeah, okay. Why don't you have
Angela Long is here today. She's the new business manager that you all voted in. So Angela?
You never know.
Hi, Angela. Welcome aboard. So you're one day in, and we already have no superintendent, so.
Yes. Usually the best way to learn.
You can break in a new one. Help break in a new one. There you go. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So we'll adjourn the special voting and go right into the committee of the whole. We've already had pledge. And rules for public participation have not changed. Roll call for the committee of the whole, Mr. Wolf?
Ms. Albright,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Durso,
here.
Mr. Strobel,
Here.
Mr. B. Scott,
Here.
Mr. Wolf here, Mr. J. Scott,
Here.
Ms. Olson,
Here.
Mr. Radke.
Here. Alrighty, we've already announced that there's another executive session after this for negotiations. Any agenda edits? Hopefully none. We've already had our fill. Anything on the superintendent's report there, Mr. Hurley, that perhaps was left for you?
No,
No,
the students were the ones.
Students, okay. Alrighty, so let's jump into finance. Under item 7, we have some course and credit approvals. We also have a motion to remove some outdated books at any primary. And we'll also, at the next meeting, have a motion to approve a reimbursement for the student that was here earlier, Nathan, for his trip to Disney World, for the honors ensemble. Discussion on those items? I think I've already mentioned that I have a question about item C. My concern was I'm all for supporting Nathan I was just wondering if we wanted to make it consistent with what we've done for TSA, bowling, etc. So just wanted to open that up to discussion.
I mean, I guess what were the circumstances that would get us to deviate from the current reimbursement policies?
Slave Line Road.
I was told, Mr. McKnight, I was told that you and Mr. Harris was thought up the number. Was that?
So Mrs. Ben, the choir person, came to us and what for and said, I said, what's the total amount? She explained the total amount for the trip and the experience, and asked what the district, if anything, could be done. I said, what amount would we be looking for? She gave me this number. I passed the number on to Mr. Harris.
Okay. So they would obviously be happy with some number, but perhaps not the.
I'm sure. I just spoke to them in the hall. They appreciate the district's generosity and everyone's support. They're very, very nice people and they're appreciative of anything.
Yeah, I agree. We should definitely help support them, but I like to try to keep it even across all avenues, so to speak, so we're not, making different decisions for different. It was $50 a day for food, $25 for lodging, because we go with 4 people per room. I thought, well, I think this is this conference is putting them in 2 to a room, but I'm not sure we should, change what our policy is. And then we pay for the admission fee in the past, which I believe was $40 for this. So I think roughly off the top of my head, it was like $340. I think is what I thought was, because I think it's a 4-day event, I believe. Anybody else have a?
Was the family told? And we agreed what the amount was going to be at $500?
Mr. Harris did share the family at $500 with you.
So I think it's, my opinion, it's kind of a moot point for $160, but your point is well made that we need to be consistent in applying how we fund and support the group, so we're not playing favorites. And, we don't want that perception that one activity is more important than another. So going forward, I ask the administration to please stay within the guidelines that the board has established for how we're to support these groups.
Mr. Hurley, as acting superintendent, could come up with the extra 100 and that the superintendent.
That wasn't his decision. Can we pull it from the current?
But he has to pay it now.
It's his decision.
Take care of your vacation.
Well, we're not voting on it tonight, but I just wanted to put it out for discussion. So we could either approve the full 500 or change that number. So I mean, we'll leave it at the 500 for now, unless is there a strong sense of changing it or leaving it?
I think we need to change it. The family was promised it.
Yeah, I think you keep it at 500. Keep it at 500. We said that.
Yeah.
I think we all agree.
Okay.
If they were already told,
Yeah, I think that's the end of the story.
we just have to make it clear that we can't deviate.
No.
I mean, it's,
That's not fair.
we don't want anybody, families and negotiating reimbursement.
Right, that's why the formula's there.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know if we have per se. I think that the policy is more verbal. I don't know if we want to actually have a formal policy on reimbursements.
Maybe an administrative
Administrative
guideline
guideline?
would probably be the best route for that. If we could codify that in some way.
Do we not have a guideline?
Not a formal AG, but we can create one for that. And that would be the right way rather than policy and AG.
It's past practice.
We can put it in.
Just
Yes, we'll do it.
yeah. I mean, as Mike and I being the senior board members, we get tired of getting put into positions where stuff is already decided and it's like, well, wait a second. So yeah, if we could please get something, some kind of policy out there, that'd be great. Any other board comments, items 7A through C? Public comment? Moving on to item 8. We have item A, some booster organization, actually only 2 booster organizations left here. Basically to operate in the district, so that's with the Music Association and Sports Boosters. I will say that this is, it is nice to see that we actually getting these requests in very early for a lot of these upcoming trips here. We have quite a few for the FBLA, as well as TSA and Key Club. So I will say thank you to administration for getting to us those in a nice timely fashion. Any board comments for A through F? Any public comment? All right. So under item 9, anything from the Secretary's office, Mr. Wolf?
No, Mr. Adler.
Item D, the IU did not meet for July. Is that the same for Berks Career and Technology? All right, so nothing to report from either. Mr. Durso, anything from our government?
No report.
All right, and I don't believe anything else. So, item 10, we have some volunteers, or actually a volunteer, and we are keeping these on the agenda. Hopefully, we might get some resolution tonight for a couple of our negotiations items. So we'll keep those on there until we actually get agreements there. Any public comments? Item 11, you got your head count for student enrollment. Any questions on those? What's our final count for kindergarten coming in? As of right now, I guess. 188.
I'm sorry.
All right. I was predicting that 190, so we still need to get a couple more. So, all right. Any public comments on enrollment? C&I had a meeting earlier tonight. Mrs. Olson, anything to report?
We already discussed the handbooks and where we are with that. Mrs. Hector gave a presentation on the summer slide reading in the parks program. It seemed like it was pretty successful.
How many kids did we get out for that?
39, yeah. I'm about to say 49. But, and we're hoping that we can do it again next year. Of course, we'll see soon if we prevented that summer slide for those kids will be here soon.
They had a nice rainy time in the park this summer.
Only one day? Yeah.
Only one day?
You had to be inside, yeah. We talked a bit about opening day and about, I guess, transportation letters will be going out soon. The high school kids were able to see their schedules today. Mr. McKnight was talking to us about some of the administrative changes he was making for the first 2 days of school. If you'd like to say something to that quickly, that'd be great.
So start of school will be a little different than it has been in the past to facilitate the iPad distribution. Teachers had some great suggestions and concerns about how much disruption there is in the school year, just pictures and height and weight testing and so forth. So we kind of built in a logistics day for the first 2 days of the school year. In there, we have iPad distribution, height and weight pictures, student pictures. Mrs. Streethouse has developed what we call a student iPad institute to engage the students through the process tool. We also have the county PA coming down to talk about cybersecurity and safety. Don't take pictures of each other in the boys' locker rooms, things like that. It's not appropriate. As well as COCA coming in, Council of Chemical Abuse, talking about cyber addiction. So those are some of the things that are happening in the first day. And then the third day we'll start full academic engagement.
Yeah, I mean, and typically, we start off and we already have a holiday, right? So sounds like that's some good stuff to get taken care of in those first couple days. So.
And I had mentioned that from my personal experience that parents are already getting the notices that the first day of school will be picture day, and so they know at least a little bit that those administrative things are happening the first couple days of school, and I've heard some good feedback so far. We also spoke about, we got a report about how the AP testing went for this year. It's broken down pretty granularly per exam, and kids who are seniors, juniors who took them last year. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but although there are some things that we do need to work on overall, our kids have been very successful with the AP testing, as always. But we did add one new course this past year. Seminar was the only new course this past year.
Seminar and...
Oh, I knew there was one other.
Yeah, that's right. Seminar and computer science was one. The seminar was really mainly at this page.
And then, of course, this year we'll be adding computer science and research, which is the follow-up to the seminar class.
Who's taking over so those higher maths, the AP?
AP Calc is Mrs. Werner, and statistics. You told me it was
Ms. Berger. Who is in the
yeah. And Mrs. Drewhouse is doing
AP computer science.
How many new math teachers do we have?
Two.
Who's our department head over there now?
Adam Evan is the department.
Well, hopefully Mr. Evening won't pull out his hair.
But for a first year class, that we have over 40 kids already signed up for AP computer science.
That's great. So you guys had a fruitful, if not short.
It was really short.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody liked it other than me being short.
Oh, okay. Any public comment or any board comment questions for Mrs. Olson? Any public comment? Facilities will not meet until August, right, Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, we actually had our meeting in July 17th.
Oh, that's right. Anything to report from that?
Well, we had a few topics to talk about. Amity Park maintenance agreement. The agreement that we have that stipulates what the maintenance is of the fields with Amity is, let me say, outdated. Didn't include the tennis courts, and they built a pavilion that was not originally part of the construction. And if you go by the agreement, we would be responsible for that maintenance, even though hope that's also true. So the idea is that Mr. Blankenbiller was going to engage Mr. Bigman from Amity to draw up a new agreement to codify some of those missing pieces and have Mr. Subers review it once it's done. Of importance to a few people in the room here, the high school entrance reconfiguration update. We talked about that briefly at the meeting. Just spoke with Mr. Blankenbiller right before the meeting, and I think they're just putting the finishing touches on what small things, but basically it's done and they'll be ready for the beginning of school. So Mr. McKnight, I'm sure, is very happy.
And I said during the curriculum committee, Mr. Blankenbiller wasn't here, but really hats off to Casey. I mean, that is phenomenal looking. You guys get a chance to come in. You did a great job. And I was worried that we'd get it open on time, but it looks good. You did a really good job.
Glad to hear it. Mr. Blankenbiller was telling me about the hazards of working with the electrical in there. They couldn't find the breaker, so we had to work on it hot. Not the most enjoyable thing to do. But you got to do what you got to do to get it done.
I guess no lockout tag out there. Huh? Okay.
Sometimes you got to blow the breaker to go find it. But
When you
we
turn
didn't want him on his
30
back.
It doesn't turn off. You just do it.
So are you saying our breakers are not very properly labeled, Mr.?
Correct, and you'll be getting a request from me for some equipment to trace wiring throughout the building, because the one circuit I turned 35 breakers off, and I still had power to it, so I just got tired of trying to find it.
Another discussion topic was the high school baseball team's use of the Optimus Field in Birdsboro. We found out that there is actually an agreement between the borough and the district on some things that we're supposed to be doing. Kind of got lost over the years, I think, because another group decided they wanted to do something more and discovered more isn't exactly all it's cracked up to be. So since our students are using the field, the discussion will be had to come up with a new agreement on how we can support that stadium and the fields, surrounding grounds, if the repairs or upgrades. And Mr. Blankenville will be talking, I suppose, with Ms. McGee from Borough on those discussions, and then I'll come to the board for approval eventually. Lastly, and this probably took up the bulk of our discussion, was the BEC masonry restoration discussion. Mr. Strobel led the discussion, spent a considerable amount of time with his presentation. Mr. Thompson was in attendance, and the committee agreed to pursue bids to seal the building and other immediate remediation work. Mr. Thompson will be working on bid specs with board approval, and we'll move forward with advertising the work, receiving bids. Ultimately, the project would be awarded and it could be started in the spring. So that was, you'll get more information on that. I did want to say special thanks to Mr. Strobel for the amount of time and effort he put into the project, as well as Mr. Blankenville, who came in on his day off to guide Mr. Strobel around the building. So again, look forward to doing something to help protect that building, and I do want to thank Mr. Strobel, who went above the normal board task to get that done. Yes, thank you. We also discussed there was a local church group that has shown interest in leasing a part of the Birdsboro Elementary building. It's basically everything from the first floor office to the left, which encompasses the cafeteria, the gym, some of the classrooms, the music classrooms are in there, and art, those classrooms. So what we had asked Mr. Small is to come up with some idea of what the cost may be, or Ms. Haynes in the business office, to come up with what some of the costs are going to be, what we would expect to see for the building to be opened up now. There's going to be electric, obviously there's going to be heating, air conditioning, water. Water's pretty expensive in Birdsboro, so we've got to factor that in there.
It was free today. It was coming.
Yeah, there's plenty of water coming down the street. But in all seriousness, we're going to take a look at what our expected cost would be. Because we had made a proposal to them, they had come back with a counter offer. So before we bring it back to the board, discuss it, we want to know what all the costs are that are going to be involved.
It'd be good to have a tenant like that in there, so it'd be nice to get that number to a number that everybody could live with. I think they're looking at maybe a Sunday and a Wednesday usage, so it'd be nice to have somebody in the building and not anybody. So I would hope that we can get to a number that both sides would be extremely comfortable with. That would be my hope as a board member.
And that could be both shared cost or assumption of some responsibilities for, like plowing, grass cutting, that whatever they would be willing to do in lieu of paying us. That would cost avoidance is the same thing to me. So we'll continue those discussions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Any board questions? We'll also second thank you to Mr. Blankenmiller and Mr. Strobel for their efforts with the Birdsboro building. Any public comment? Okay. Move on to finance. Mr. Wolf, you're on again.
Yeah, we discussion with Ms. Haynes. Until the audit was complete, there was really no need to have a finance meeting in August, so our next one will be in September.
Right. Where are we at with our audit? Are they still
They came in for,
plugging around the building?
yeah, they came in for preliminary and they'll be back in September.
Okay. And everybody that was waiting for Mr. Scott's policy review? Committee report?
Well, as you can see, we have a number of items on second reading. So speak now for everyone's piece on those items, and we'll be meeting first time in 2 months, 2 weeks.
Any board questions from Mr. Scott? Public comment?
One more thing, just in general, I think we're in a good spot now with policy, and that we're not backlogged with a bunch of stuff from PSBA, so we're in a kind of a nice little rhythm where when they're getting them into us, we're getting to them.
That's why we have you in charge, Mr. Scott. You can right along. Mr. Miller, Technology Committee.
Yes, we met last week. Last Tuesday, we met, got a number of updates from Mr. Matz. The financial system is on target. The servers were created in July, data conversion started. It's on target for end of the calendar year, really to go live, but to ensure that the software will be ready to support the budget process.
If not, I guarantee Mrs. Haynes will be at Mr. Scott's, camping out in Mr. Scott's office, or Mr. Matz's office. Sorry?
We're ready to go. The second update was the data warehouse solution, pretty much the same thing. Implementation's on target. Training is going on, and we'll be ready for the start of the school year.
And I'm sure you asked again about the iPads. Are we on track?
Yes. We can, the iPad, the rollout, the equipment's arrived, and all of the equipment, the firewalls are in place, the wireless is in place, we're all set for the rollout. We talked extensively about the first 2 days, and having Apple will be on site, I guess, on Thursday, and a lot of support has been put in place.
Okay, super. Any board questions for Mr. Miller? Public comment on the technology? Transportation, Mrs. Lumber?
We are scheduled to meet this Wednesday. Nothing happened in July.
I don't know, can I ask a question since we're on transportation? I heard rumor that possibly a survey went out about high school busing. Is that true or not true, or is that real? Is that unsubstantiated rumor? Anybody from the administration? No? Okay, yeah, perhaps an unsubstantiated rumor?
Are we, is Jeff ready in the event that one or both of these bridges aren't completed when they're supposed to be? Because I feel like,
Well,
I think that's on the agenda to discuss.
I would
on
imagine it would
Wednesday.
be, but I'm
It's
just,
definitely on there.
it's supposed to be done in, I guess, 2 weeks, which gives you, if they're off, the one near my house is on Blacksmith, is scheduled to be done in 2 weeks.
Hoping.
Now, it looks like it's pretty far along, but, I don't work on bridges, so I don't really care about it. I'm guessing that.
It's kind of hard to work in the rain.
Well, that's what I mean, so if they, push back 2 weeks, is that gonna adjust?
I guarantee we're gonna have complaints because with the bridge on Main Street out again through November. That's the main road to get. I'm sure we're gonna have the kindergartners on our bus longer than we would like. We can always set up a ferry and bring them across.
Somebody from the township, Amity, said that that's supposed to be right on schedule. The one by our house on Blacksmith. So, take it for what it is.
We'll see.
Yeah.
See you 2 weeks.
All right. Any other questions for Mrs. Albright? Public comment? Old business will have minutes to review and approve next meeting. Any more questions on the minutes? Okay. Public comment? New business? A few weeks ago, Yeah, I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago. Mrs. McNeely sent out a board meeting calendar for everybody to look at. There are actually several months where the meeting will change due to holidays and whatnot as well. So we have, let's see here. We have the April meeting changing because of Easter. We have Memorial Day in May, changing it. We have, we've, for the past couple of years, moved our June meeting to accommodate getting our budget approved, so we have time to get the tax bills in place and everything else. And then I think the next change is not until December, and we actually have both meetings changed. So we're meeting December 2nd and the 16th. Did anybody have any comments on that? Those changes to our normal second and fourth day. All good? No. All right. And then I had asked to have a discussion added on as far as informational items that the board used to get. And I know there's some challenges to that. And so I know Mr. Harris, so the board used to get, if you looked at some of our past board agendas, we used to get informational items like fundraising requests, building usage requests, and like field trips, although you'll see now that the field trips are more incorporated into, well, not the ones that are traveling, but we used to get the other field trip, this informational items, things we actually did not approve, but were items that so the board was aware of what's going on if they had any questions. So I know the fundraising was pushed down to, I believe, the principals. I know Mr. McKnight, if you look at his report, lists all the fundraising activities that are going on at the high school. I know Mr. Hurley has discussed changing how the superintendent's report's done, so we'll see what that entails. But I guess the item that is the most, I guess, challenging, and I don't know if Mr. Blankendoor can speak to it or not, but since we finally went automated for our facilities usage request, it's great that now it's automated, but apparently it's difficult to actually glean the information out of it that is pertinent to what I would guess the board is interested in. So it spits out everything, any room requests at all in the district, they can get out of it, but I guess they haven't figured out how to narrow it down. You know, someone's coming in and requesting the use of our gym, and we're charging a fee for that or whatever and whatnot. You know, the board used to see that stuff because I guess I always like to see what we were charging, who we were charging, and who we were not charging, to make sure that we weren't charging folks we should be charging and charging folks we should be charging. So anyway, I just wanted to add that as a discussion. I don't know if is there a way around it? I'm not sure. Mr. Blankendoor, do you have any insight into that program?
I would have to dig into it to see what reports can be run, that's all. I'll email them while we're here and just give them a heads up. So you're looking for who's paying, more or less a report of what fees.
I mean, typically we used to get who was typically like renting our gymnasiums or utilizing like cafeteria and whatnot, and who we were charging, and then you know, we obviously allow community groups in that we weren't charging for, and I was just making sure that those folks were indeed not being charged when they should not be. So I just like to make sure that we were doing the right thing for them too.
Let me see what I can get them.
Yeah, I don't want to make it too cumbersome for you.
Right.
I mean, I could be the only one that's interested in that if nobody else on the board wants to see it.
I would like to. Do we have who's collecting the money when somebody gets paid?
My school bucks? I don't know.
And is there a calendar somewhere that says, I want to rent it on that day?
Well, so it used to be you actually had to submit a form, which was very cumbersome and had to go through like, principal approval and then, kicked up to the business office and superintendent. Now it's all automated. So you can actually go in and request the room. Can you do that online? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would think there's some way to pull that data. So, yeah. So, Mr. McAreal, if you could check that out, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
All right. Thank you. Any other board items at all that anybody needs to get out? Mrs. Olson.
I just want to make a comment. I just didn't want it to go unacknowledged that I did want to acknowledge Mr. Harris's service to the school board, to the school district. I'm sorry. It's superintendent's not an easy job, and it's been an especially difficult job, but for this time in our district, both financially and otherwise. And I just didn't want it to go unacknowledged that I appreciate that. I don't know how this.
So you're thanking him for his service
Even though
to
he's
the
not
district?
here. I
Yes, that's fine. That's more than reasonable. Anybody else? Yeah. I mean, I've got to work with three superintendents. Dr. Otto very shortly. Mrs. Torcher wasn't here that long, and so Mr. Harris was the longest tenure here. And I certainly think he's helped out the district in certain areas, and was certainly each year he was here got better at his duties. So I do wish him luck in his new position. And unfortunately it's not a easy task finding a new superintendent, especially in this environment. It's a job that has gotten extremely difficult with budgets these past several years, and certainly a job that I think people used to enjoy has driven some of them folks that used to be good superintendents out of the business. So, so hopefully we'll find a good candidate. Any public comments? Hi, Mimi.
Hi, Mimi. Okay, so I'm going to keep this really short and sweet because my name is Sharon Morris, and I'm very excited. And I live on Bird Street in Brisbane. And I am the PTC president for this year, and I'm bringing back old school, because that's kind of where it is. The first thing we're going to do is, I've already spoken with Dr. C, and it's in the full mix, and you and I spoke with this, is with the school, y'all are coming back, they do district-wide, we're bringing lunch. PTC is providing lunch for district staff, so their first day, don't bring their lunches, sit and eat some Moe's if you're in the area. That is my first thing is.
Is all the PCT folks going to yell "Welcome to Moe's" when?
No, I don't. I can't get that many there, but I can try. But that's my first thing. We banked a lot of money with Booster Fund last year. Unfortunately, I didn't sign with Booster Fund again this year because I think that as a district-wide, I want to do something big, and I want all schools, and I want us to profit 100%. I don't want to give somebody 50% of our money, because that's nothing to do. So that's my long-term goal. I have some meetings set up. I'm trying. We went over our meeting yesterday with PTC. We are going to have our minutes. We're going to send them to you, so you know what we're doing. The building use form we have things that we want to do, and we actually submitted forms. Are we allowed to put those on the calendar? Because I'm trying to get things on the district calendar, but I didn't get it approved yet for the building.
A good question. I have no idea how the process works, so I'll leave it to able-bodied administration to guide you on that.
I made sure it didn't coincide with any of the other dates, because I got what was already set in with the chorus and the bands and everything else. So, but that is my thing. So I'm going to try and be in contact with you guys and give our teachers what they need. Okay?
Well, welcome aboard, and thank you for providing lunch for our staff. Hopefully that enthusiasm will maintain through the entire year.
I try. And I'll have my gummy bears
Charlie B. Hicks, Orchardview Drive, Douglasville. I don't know yet if you've had an opportunity to discuss how you will search for a new superintendent, the process. Is it too soon to have had that discussion yet?
We have started the discussion, yes.
About 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
About 10 minutes ago. I know that many, I think most school districts have a search committee that involves all the stakeholders, not all the stakeholders, but pieces of each stakeholder in the community to be involved in that process to make sure you get somebody good. So I would encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hicks. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Mr. Caruso, a second, please.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Olson. Meeting adjourned. Don't forget, we have executive.